Bum, bum, bum. So there's some things to talk about that are going to be outrageous to some of you. So I figure we should jump in. What we're going to do is copy the link and anyone can join. Boom, boom. This will not be uploaded to YouTube, most likely. All right. And the link is in the comments. Let's see if we can quote this. All right. We'll post it that way. Just got home. Got to get out and do things tomorrow early, but we're just going to stream. So, got some feedback on the Aquinas lectures. Tartaglia's tech was making it hard for us to hear him. We're fixing that. We're going to fix it. And then we're going to have a conversation that he and I have been having for 15 years together, all about centered around his objections to what we had been covering. And so we'll give him a fair shake on that. But we've got through the first section now. We've gotten through the first section. There we go. So we'll be picking that up another time. We're not doing that today. Probably not tomorrow, maybe tomorrow evening. But today, what we're going to do is try and fish. We're going to fish for some of the higher men. We're going to throw out some honey bait and some things that look like, ooh, swim and attack, swim and attack. You can't say that type of stuff. And then we're going to make some friends with some higher men. And I'm looking for one right now. Bum, 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 bum. Pum, pum, pum. What is, oh, of course, everyone's arguing about that. You say one thing and it makes everybody argue. Okay, let's see if we can find. Do. Looking for. So if you click that link, you can join us here. And what we're going to do is try to find some people who want to talk to us about scientism and why the experts are to be trusted. It'll surprise you how little the experts know. Now, I'm trying to push this link here in a specific direction. Having trouble finding. If only things were easier to do on this platform. Well, we're going to find it in a moment. And we'll sing our tum-ti-tum again. Pum, pum, pum. Bum. Maybe we need to have a simultaneous sip. Perhaps that will help us to not overlook. Overlook is an interesting word because it's an auto antonym. So if you overlook the battlefield, it means you spot things with your eyes. But if you quickly flip through the pages and you overlook the passage for which you were looking, you have failed to spot something with your eye. So overlook has more than one definition, and two of which are opposites of each other. And perhaps if we have the simultaneous sip, I will stop overlooking the location where I want to send this link so that we can get an expertismist to come in and tell us why the methods of science are far superior, which is the conversation we hope to have today and probably won't be uploaded to YouTube. This is just some live streaming fun. All right, I'm going to give up looking for this until we have the simultaneous sip. Or simultaneous whatever. So get your cup, your mug. Are you ready? Your glass, your tankard, your chalice, your thermos or your stein, your canteen jug or flask, your vessel of any kind, and fill it with your favorite liquid. Well, today we're having water. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything, literally everything better. It's called the simultaneous sip, and it happens right now. Go. Ooh, you feel the chills. Nothing like simultaneity. Okay, what we're going to discuss today, if we can get somebody in to debate it, because I'm probably not going to just lecture on it too much. Although, who knows what tangents and rants I might go off on. Ah, here we go. We're close. We're close. I'm going to find this person. I'm going to post this link to them. Is scientism and expertism and okay, come on, please. Is this the person we're trying to link to? Oh, egads. Here we go. Here we go. I don't know what time it is or day where you are right now, mate. But just in case, boom. Okay, so feel free to spread this anywhere you want where people are relying upon the experts. But I mean, yeah, what did Scott say? Anybody with a boss is not a scientist. The thing is, science is fragile and it's precious and it's difficult and it's easily overrun by other concerns. I remember reading, I did a little study on the development of the concept of the rights of free speech through looking at the most censored works, both religiously and a different collection of works that are censored politically. And what you discover about religious works that are censored is that for centuries, it takes a long time for us to come to this Jeffersonian idea, this Thomas Painian idea. But for centuries, what would happen is someone would be reading the scriptures, say, in the religious context, and they would say, I think I've discovered the correct way to worship God, and so on. And then they would be censored as heretics, and oh, we can't allow this to be promulgated. And then they would write fantastic, wonderful essays, uh, expounding upon the virtues of the right to inquiry, to ask questions and to seek out truth and to speak the truth as you see it and have it hashed out in debate and all of this stuff. And you make yourself a prisoner of your own ideas if you refuse to hear what other people have to say and blah blah blah. Really great arguments. And then, and this is taking centuries of our species doing this, as soon as that person moved to Rhode Island, say, and founded their little providence, they immediately censored anybody who disagreed with them. It's like, well, I have the right to ask these questions and do this, but I don't have to grant it to everybody else because they're clearly wrong. And it's actually very difficult, even in today's day. I remember Hitchens once said that it took him a long time to understand the real principles of defending the Klan's right to speak, because it's also your right to speak and it's your right to hear what they have to say, even if you know they're wrong or think they're dumb or are very well equipped with arguments for why they're evil and stupid. Still, you don't take away their right to speak. You don't make free speech martyrs out of them, and you don't make yourself a prisoner of your own ideas so that you never have cause to argue from first principles again. Let's find the flat earther so that we can know how we know the earth is round. All of that's valuable, and it's more valuable than just two sides and cults picking on each other and noticing that the other side is cultish, but never noticing that they themselves are cultish. And that's something worth noticing. You know, if you talk to somebody who's like, oh, those flat earthers, they're in a cult and I can see it clearly. Yeah, you can. But can you tell me why the earth is round? Because if you can't, you're also in a cult. You're in the group that says, rah, rah, sis, boom, bah, we have the right thing to say. But how valuable is that? As Nietzsche said, what matters belief? What matter believers? So, in any event, the long, slow, painful process of scratching our way up the hill to come to this understanding that no, you have to actually protect everybody's right to inquire and to speak, and your right to hear what they have to say is the same thing. And the more offensive and the stupider, and the more you're sure it's wrong, the more you have to make sure you give them a soapbox and a megaphone and make sure that they're well heard. Because if you can't beat them in the argument, why are you telling me how wrong they are? Maybe you're also in a cult. Maybe it's a cult that happens to be closer to the truth, but what's the point of being cultish? In any event, um, people can easily see that others are in a cult far more easily than they can be critical of themselves. One of the things I noticed about this history of the oh, I brought the empty packs with me. Uh, how valuable is that? Here we go. One of the things I noticed is that eventually we developed something called a wall of separation between church and state. This was developed by very religious people. It wasn't developed by secularists hammering on religion from the outside, as you might imagine when you hear some of the new atheist types talk. It was developed by highly religious people who did not want to go and sit in a pew next to some other uh, devotee who's supposedly worshiping God according to the principles that we've agreed to because we're Presbyterians or Southern Baptists or whatever, and then have to wonder, is he only here because the government's going to tax him if he doesn't show up to church? Because that's how it used to be, right? Stop poisoning our worship. If we're here because we want to be here. And if you force us to be here because you got the state involved, you poison the church. It's not just about keeping the state pure from the religion. We don't want our religions poisoned by the use of force. I wish, and I've argued and I've spoken about this before, I wish that what's left of the dry bones of people who dare to call themselves professors, in what's left of the collapsing scenery of academia, I wish that they would desire a wall of separation to protect themselves from the state. Because as soon as you get something as large as the state involved in something like science, you can just throw it out. It was already hard to do. It was already something only a few people were doing properly. It was already something that was prone to error. It's a set of rules that drag apes like us kicking and screaming towards some kind of objectivity against our will. You can't put another interest in there like, oh, scare everybody into thinking the world's going to end and they have to vote for us to have more power and tax them more. Is there a scientist among you who would say something I can twist into exaggerated form of that? I will if you advance my career and give me more authority. Granted. I mean, that's it. That's all that happens. Obviously, it's not, you can't put science in bed with something like the state and expect it not to be overpowered. So we coin a new word called scientism. And scientism is well, actually, there's two criticisms here. So forget the word scientism. We're noticing that it isn't science at all. That isn't the method. The method isn't, I've got a boss and he told me to keep saying this, therefore I'm doing science. It's just not how it's done. However, when it is done, in the rare instances where it's done correctly, it's so powerful. It's a tribute to the greatness of science that it's so valuable that you can have 99% of what calls itself science glom on like a bunch of parasites to pretend they're also the same legitimate thing. It shouldn't bother us that that's the case. 50% of papers are shown not to be replicable within a year. Within a year. Okay. Obviously, there's much more we can say, and lots of people on Twitter and X already know the things you can say about how abysmal the products of academia when it's in bed with the government are, but they're abysmal. However, that doesn't mean it's not a thing worth doing. It doesn't mean I'm saying science is stupid. I'm not saying it's not valuable. That's the first criticism. The first criticism is the people who believe in climate change believe the scientists the government has chosen to hold up as experts and then not really believing them because you don't understand them or believe them, and they don't believe anything like the earth's about to end if we don't vote blue no matter who. But the weird twists and exaggerations and misunderstandings of the paid journalists and politicians and activists who twist the few things that they're saying, which basically amount to, yes, this could be significant. You shouldn't decrease my funding. That's the only question you have to ask them is, could it possibly be that this is important? Yes, I think it is. They told us it's important. And then they just run off and tell you the world's going to end if we don't worry about this thing. That's not what the original scientist even said. So you're not denying science by not studying it and then not taking the, propagandist's word for what it says. That's the first thing. But then second thing, and we could go on a lot about the first thing again, and there's more to say. But the second principle that matters is the scientism principle, which is we're living in an age and it's rapidly coming to an end. There's nothing you can do about it. And this is the part that's going to be infuriating and that hopefully will bring in a few people who don't want to hear this. But it is rapidly coming to an end and there's nothing you can do about it. We are currently living in an age where we act as though we believe that the scientific kind of truth is the ultimate kind of truth. There's nothing you can do to stop that from its decline. It's rapidly in sunset, late sunset. It will rise again. The Aristotelian advocates will rise again, but it's not their time. The sun is setting on them right now, and the Platonists are on the rise. And we need to take the conversation seriously so that we can do it carefully. But that's the time period you're living in, and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't have to advocate against science. Scientism is well past the point of diminishing returns. What do I mean by scientism? Well, I don't mean science. Science is still precious and good and it can be done properly. I'm not saying take science and bin it. I've got a geology degree. I mean, I'm not against science. I studied the philosophy of science and the history of science. I care about that. It's valuable. Believe me, it's valuable. I've got things to say about it. Can do things other ways of thinking can't even approach trying, but it's also very limited. And all the greatest scientists, if you read Galileo, if you read Sir Francis Bacon, if you read the people who did the philosophical work to carve out the space of doing science properly, Newton as well, will tell you it's not the type of knowledge that you think it is. They were very clear about that and they were correct. We've forgotten that. Forgetting that is what I mean by scientism. Scientism is acting like there's some priests in lab coats that have access to some kind of like ultimate truth. They look in their microscopes and words are written on the sides of molecules and they pronounce them to us and tell us what it's really like. None of that's even close to true. Um, I would like to make a little speech exhibiting, exhibit A, exhibit B about how untrue it is, but I'd rather do it in the face of somebody who's really angry by what I'm saying and who can interject and get upset and tell me why I'm wrong. It would be far more interesting. So, like I said, we're not putting this on YouTube probably, but we're just going to live stream and see if we can do this. So I should probably link it. Okay, yeah. Send this link. To it, Okay, we're gonna have the elite sippers maybe send the link out to the right types of people. Okay, is the Earth flat? There's some interesting things we could say about it. It's not going to sound like any of the stuff you normally hear from flat earthers. Did Scott Adams think the Earth was flat? Ooh, he did think we were in a simulation. Isn't that one-dimensional code? It's worse than flat, isn't it? Well, we could leave that question aside. But if it is a simulation, is it round? What would it mean to be round? Put that aside for now. Um, if you're a neutrino, the Earth is certainly flat. It's not even impenetrable. It's something you just pass right through and don't even notice. So it might depend on perspective. If you're flying an international jet or programming a GPS system that utilizes satellites, you probably have to model the Earth as round. But once you're done doing that and you're driving home, are you thinking of the Earth as round or are you thinking of it as flat? And if you're thinking of it as like a disc where you have like 360 degrees you can travel on it, if that's closer to the model we've always been using, which or that we may have been using, which may kind of be flat-ish, is that model useful for you in that context? And do you not even notice that that's what you're doing? In which case, why give preferential treatment to the model that works better when you're doing a rare thing that most people don't have to do? Or do you think of it as round when you're driving home? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that if somebody tapped you on the shoulder and said, "What shape is the Earth?" you'd say round, but you've been interrupted in your thought processes while you're driving home or walking through a park or hiking or something like that. How are you thinking about the Earth when you're walking around on it? Do you really believe that it's round all the time if the model you're using basically is, I don't need curved shoes to walk on it, so it's not really something that matters? Um, are you indifferent to the question, or do you have a default model that, if we were able to examine it, would actually be flatter-ish? That doesn't make it the truth. It just means it's a model that's working. Scientifically, do you have something better than a model that's working? Well, you have a model that works in greater contexts, right? So if your job is to then program a GPS satellite system or something, you're probably going to take into account quantum mechanics as well as the roundness of the Earth. So, hey, that model's superior, according to one way of judging things, because you could use that model while hiking through the woods, and you can also use it to program the GPS, but you can't use the flat model to program the GPS, even if you can use it to walk through the woods, even if you are using it without wanting to. Even if asked, you would say round. It doesn't mean you're actually thinking of it as round, which means the map that you're using of the world is more two dimensional, as are all the screens that you're looking at. Anyway, um, so these are questions. I'm not I'm not advocating for a flat earth here. I hope that it's pretty clear that I'm not advocating for flat earth here, but I'm asking us to examine our thought processes and see if we really actually believe it's round. Do you know how to justify if it's round? And I'm speaking primarily to the people who dedicate their time to arguing, mocking, attacking, hammering away at the crazy, annoying flat earthers because I can tell they're wrong. I can tell they're in a cult. Yeah, you're right. Congratulations. Are you in one also? How do you know the earth is round? There are answers to these questions, but do you have them? Um, do those answers really matter to you most of the time? Do you just not even think about it? Are you indifferent to the question? Or do you have a model that is actually flatter than that? And of course, if we're living in a simulation, and then there's the perspectivism ones, which are okay, the Earth's one dimensional if we're living in a simulation, as is everything else, perhaps. And if you're a neutrino and you have your consciousness and you're passing through the Earth, I mean, poetry about Mother Earth isn't going to mean anything to you. And impenetrability of the solidity of Earth, the fact that it's solid and you can't pass through it, isn't going to mean anything to you either because you zoom right through it and you don't hit anything. So those are all different objections. I'm again clearly not advocating for a flat earth position. What I'm asking is for us to examine if we have an ultimate kind of truth because we've memorized the answer our fourth grade teacher taught us to respond with when asked the question, because that's more cultish than you think it is. And it's, of course, the Freudian narcissism of small differences that makes cultish people point out other cults because for a brief moment they think, well, at least I'm not that, but you are that. You're the same as that. You just have the opposite position that you're putting on the throne, or that is your idol that you're worshiping. But we could do the thinking. The thinking would be worth doing if we wanted to wake up and de-NPCify ourselves. Might be a slow process, but it might be more rapid than we imagine it would be. So, the point of this ramble is to see if we can say something irritating and aggravating enough to the climate science people, the climate change alarmists, or anybody else who maybe hates flat earthers. Again, I'm not saying I'm a flat earther, but we're trying to say something that will spark in the higher thinking, active, passionate brains that know that this is wrong. Not to tell them that, no, you're wrong, that's right, but to say, yeah, but are you doing something better than being in a cult? Because you can recognize the other cults when you're in a cult. Um, I remember when Scott used to say, people think what is it, they come to understand, he didn't use these words, but he explained this idea, they come to understand that the other side is wrong, deluded, dishonest, evil. They have models of what it is that they are, that they're not thinking that they're in a cult, but they don't understand that so is their side. You can pick sides and try to balance things out and be more liberal when it needs a push and more concern, that's what the Avatar does, but you got to notice that both sides are mostly populated with people who are just as cultish as so what I'm hoping to do is annoy the cultists on the pro science side, because wouldn't that be more fun? I mean, they've got all of science, they have a method. Shh, shh. They're going to let us know that they have a method. They're totally can't wait to let us know that what separates them from the other things is they have a method. method. It's really a cool method. And it is, of course. It's a great method. It's very hard to employ. It requires a separation of that precious, fragile thing that is science that's hard to do from any other influence, religious, political, anything else gets involved. It's just throw it out. It's not going to work. It's really hard to do, and you have to protect it. And you need a wall of separation between academic pursuits and scholarly pursuits and the government coming in to say, well, I'll give you a stamp of approval and raise you up and give you a position of authority if you just say the thing that I can twist into the thing that gives me more power. Someone's going to do it. Someone might even think their science says so. And then that'll be the only one you ever hear from. And there goes your whole method. So I'm going to advocate for the method against people who are going to say, but we have a method. That means you got to stop questioning us. No, you've ruined your method. I really want you to fall in love with your method again and understand how it works and how valuable it is and protect it. So that's going to be the ultimate point of this. But first, we got to tick some people off and get them riled up, and we'll give them lots of time to talk. So if anybody is listening and would like to click the links available, you can come on the live stream. We're probably not going to upload this to YouTube. I don't know. We might, but the point of this doesn't really fit with any of the other classes that we do in the series that we do over there. We're just going to have some fun streaming on X. But if you'd like to come in here and tell me what a bad, bad, naughty boy I am for questioning whether or not the world's about to end because we're burning fossil fuels, what are we doing? We're taking dead organic material that bitch Mother Earth buried in a non-oxygenated environment to the tune of hundreds of thousands of tons of it, so that it decomposed out of those macromolecules of dinosaur DNA down into just basic C's and H's, and we're burning it back into the atmosphere where it once was a part of the carbon cycle and the life cycle when Earth had more energy, more more life, and was flourishing. We're freezing to death. Earth is freezing to death because a lot of the life got buried there. It's not like we're raping Mother Earth for her milk. She killed a lot of the surficial life, and it got buried down there and stopped being a part of things that bacteria could break down, and there was oxygen available, and it could keep that carbon could keep being a part of all the different teeming life on the surface of the earth. Took it out, made us colder. Not so good. We bring it back and we make things lusher. Huge swaths of tundra will become farmable again, while a few coastal regions might to spend 200 years slowly moving a little bit inland. I mean, that's not a crisis. Look how many people lived in New York City 200 years ago. How'd all those people move in without a bunch of policies to say this is an emergency? How are we going to make it happen? No, they just moved in. People can, over 200 years, slowly move in. I mean, all the coasts are changing all the time. There's different areas where land is going down, land is going up, where the basin of the sea is going down or up because of plate tectonics. So the ocean's rising or falling for different reasons in different coastal areas. That's the entire history. If you look at any outcrop of sedimentary rock, what you'll see is mudstone and sandstone and siltstone and mudstone. I could get you pictures of it right now. And I could just type in any outcrop of sedimentary rock and I'll explain to you what it looks like. And what you're actually seeing there is, remember how the sand is at the beach and then it's finer silt out under the ocean and then it's like really, really fine out there? You're seeing a lateral transition, and up by the mountains where things are breaking down, you get conglomerates and stuff, and coarser, less sorted sands, and then finely sorted sands, and rounder sands, and then tiny silt. You've got this horizontal layer that becomes a vertical layer. Why is it a vertical layer? Because every location where deposits are being made, the coast is moving in and out. It's like this place was deep sea ocean, and then right above it, it was beach, and then right above it, it was near a mountain, and then like it's actually moving. We could do that right now. Let's pull it up. Core, no, not core sample. That's harder. Let's just do outcrop. It's easier to see, of sedimentary rock. That's all I'm going to type. I'm not going to look for any specific thing. And I'm going to click on images and I'm going to say share screen. And we're going to explain that this is normal. Hey, look, that one's kind of cool. Oh, wait, I should add to the screen here. All right. Outcrop of sedimentary rock. We got some nice ones. Oh, this one's kind of cute. It's very beautiful, and it's all very horizontal, so it hasn't had a bunch of upheaval and mountain forming events and things like that. Let's see if we can make the picture of the image larger. Okay, let's see what we can see here. We won't be able to zoom in with high enough resolution, but you can take my word for a little bit of it. We'll get a close-up picture. Let's say this is, let's say you walked up here and you rubbed your fingers against this rock, you would find a very, very fine dust, much smaller than sand. But then down here, if you rubbed your fingers up against the rock really roughly, you'd get little like grains of like sand. It's called sandstone, and this is called siltstone over here. You've got siltstone here and sandstone here. Now, sand conglomerates at the beach, right at the coast, right? Or where a river overflows and it loses its carrying capacity because it's not flowing quickly anymore, and all the sand drops and stuff. You can find that elsewhere. But this was beach. We won't explain how we know all that, but we'll just say this is not from a river overflowing. This is a beach thing. Okay, and it's sand, 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 build up, 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 build up. And then it starts getting finer and finer and finer, silty and silty and silty. So now the silt is being deposited right over where the sand was being deposited. What does that mean, class? It means the ocean has been invading the coast, because now the coast is way up there. Where there once was sand being dropped is now finer stuff because the sand's being dropped up there. It's a horizontal layer, sand here, silt here, but now it's been moved. So there's sand up here and silt over here. So there's silt right on top of where there was sand before. And then you'll notice it's silty, 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 and then it gets a little coarser and a little more sand-like. Okay, it's a little more sand-like now. So the ocean has been coming out. So every coast has a lot of different factors that are leading to the ocean invading or the ocean receding from the land. And then over here, you've suddenly got a layer of mud. That means that it's moved really far in, and you're not just at the near ocean part, you're way out where the tiny little particles, as the water from the river is really slowly, barely pushing at all anymore, it can still carry the tiniest little particles way out there, and they fall and they fall and they fall and they fall, and they build up and build up and build up and build up. And what happens is the sediment builds and builds and builds and builds and builds until there's enough pressure on the lower layers that it squeezes out the last little bit of water and it concretizes. And as it concretizes, it becomes a new kind of rock. And that's what you're seeing here. And so let's see, we could go back and look at other pictures because it's not just one, it's lots of them. So we're going to look, and can maybe we get a close-up shot of this, not just a picture of a drawing cartoon. These are all showing the same thing. Now, this is showing folding. There's other geomorphological things to look at, lots of things you can know about rocks. Believe it or not, rocks, which I thought were just like little bits of hard brown stuff out there, rocks are fascinating and they tell you a lot about stuff if you know how to look at them. And a bunch of really powerful, awesome, crazy people called scientists from James Hutton and before just spent their lives studying a silly little rock until they could discover things about it. Like, wow, this sandstone, if I scrape off the sand, all the little grains of sand are about the same size. It's very well sorted. But this one has big ones and small ones and big ones and small ones. It's not so well sorted. And they said, wait a minute, I got it. Where the mountain is crumbling apart and the river is starting to flow and it's carrying all this sediment from way up high in the mountains, way up to the ocean, if the rock built up and was deposited and that stopped working, the carrying capacity got lost and you started building up sediment closer to the mountain, you had less time to sort the rock. Because it turns out that also all the grains of sand in this rock are very well rounded, like they've been traveling very long distances and bumping into things in a river. So there's not a lot of angularity to it, but these singular individual grains are very rounded. Whereas the ones up here where it's not well sorted, they're very angular, like they haven't been transported a very long distance and had the chance to become smoother. Just tons of stuff that you can figure out about the world and the past through looking at rock. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to look at one more bit. I'm hoping to have one that shows layers, but it's also close enough. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, shows layers, but it's also zoomed in enough that we might be able to see. We could add a few more words to the search, which would give us what we're looking for. But every single one of these pictures tells the story I was telling before about egress and regress of the ocean and the coast, which doesn't mean that climate change isn't real. The oceans may very well rise as you melt the polar ice caps. I'm not denying any of that. I'm just saying that this is a thing that we are well acquainted with and we can measure and we understand the record of the history of it in all these different locations. And the most alarmed scientists in the world, when they say climate change is real, what they're saying is something like, in 200 years, over the course of the next 200 years, we have some reason, but not a lot, because we don't have the mathematical models to actually predict things from climate because it's chaotic and nonlinear. But we have a suggestion that perhaps maybe there will be certain coastal regions that are inhabited today that might not be able to be inhabited in 200 years. And again, 200 years ago, how many people lived in New York City? They all moved in without anybody freaking out. People slowly move their houses places. That's not a crisis. That's the most crisis. But then you get journalists and politicians and activists and stuff saying, the climate scientists are saying it's real and you're denying it. Now vote for me and give me more tax dollars to handle this horrible emergency. It's not an emergency. And none of that story includes the fact that huge swaths of tundra will suddenly become farmable again. I mean, life likes energy and it likes heat, which is energy transfer, and it likes carbon, surficial life on Earth. There's other kinds of life. We won't talk about that, but there's mysteries that the Avatar can tell you about other types of life not based on carbon. But the surficial life of Earth, I shouldn't just leave that hanging in the air. In about 100,000 years, people might have the means of detecting. Never mind. Okay, so carbon-based life is surficial life on Earth. It's all based in carbon. Carbon's not a poison. It's literally the basic ingredient of everything. Why? Well, if you look at the periodic table, let's go here and pull up periodic table of elements. A great scientist who lived in the woods. And what do you got? What do you got? You got carbon. Can we make this bigger? Hey, look at that. Even technology is working today. So you got carbon here. Now, if you don't know anything about chemistry, these are very, very, in this column, very unhappy elements because they've got one too many electrons and they wish to be more like these elements. And these elements here are very, very unhappy elements because they wish to have one more electron, not one fewer, and they wish to then be like these over here. And if you want to get as far away from the most unhappy here and the most unhappy here, you end up on this row here Or you've got things that can kind of gain or lose. They can make a whole lot of different bonds. You got 4 bonds that you can make with a carbon. It's like a duplo. Oh, look, silicon acts like it, and it's one below. Forget what I said earlier or whatever. But carbon can make four. So it's like a duplo. It's the basic duplo building block of life because you can take one carbon and another carbon and another carbon, and then you've got 3 or 2 bonds that you can make for all of these things. You can make big chains and macromolecules like DNA, all with this carbon skeletal structure as the background. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of carbons. You can have like glucose, you can have like plant fibers, and you just chain all of these benzene rings together, and it's just each is 6 carbons, and they've got all these other things they can attach onto them because it's a 6 duplo ring, and then it can attach with a beta or an alpha oxygen bridge to the next benzene ring, and you just keep linking them together, and you get these long planty fibers. If you take those long planty fibers and you kind of link them all together off of one end, you've got animal fat. And that's really what it looks like chemically. We could probably look that up too. But anyway, you've got this carbon here, and it's this basic building block of all the biological organic chemistry, the study of carbon basically on superficial life on Earth. Okay, so hey, this is more interesting. Oh boy, there's lots more interesting. We won't go into every geological idea, but we've got deposition, and that's how we've got this sedimentary rock. And you can see, oh, let's just look it up since I'm not just talking out my butt. Horizontal layers becoming vertical layers in sedimentary rock. Who was the guy that was named after? There's a principle here. Spell everything correctly. Oh, who was the guy that was named after? It's not the Wilson cycle. For the love of mercy. I'm supposed to know more about the history of science than science. I'm looking pretty bad on that front right now. What was that guy's name who figured this out? Um, Vertical layers of rock, principle, who discovered. Uh, let's get out of images and we'll probably see his name as the first thing. Superposition and original horizontality. Those are different geologic principles. Steno's principles are different. Come on, there was a guy who figured this out. What was his name? Why am I on Yahoo instead of Google? Okay, for the love of mercy, I hate getting old and forgetting names. All right, let's just make sure that the Wilson cycle is about planet supercontinents. Yeah, okay, so it's not the Wilson cycle. What is the name? Who did we name the principle of ocean regress, vertical layers as translated from horizontal layers in depositional. I'm just trying to use too many words to hope that this stupid AI figures out. Walter's law. Maybe that's it. I don't remember that. Lateral to vertical translation. Yeah, okay. So Walter's law. Nikolai Golovitsky. Who stole it from who? Who stole it from who? That's what we need to know next. What was this guy's name? Oh, we're definitely not going to upload this to YouTube now because while I look this information up, I'm going to play copyrighted music in the background. So here we go. Let's see how well this works. I'm going to change the audio to be headphones.
A routine about the Great Russian Breakfast and Associated Sequences.
Walter's law issues. blur out. I'm sharing it on live stream image. What Rush allows and still monster show. Also, try a elephant. I think that's no. Okay, so I was looking into that side issue of who stole it from who. It probably doesn't matter. Let's get back to our research. And our research was looking into who it was that came up with Walter's Law. And in Russia, it's called the Levinsky-Walters Law because of a drama I know nothing about. But anyway, Walter is the one who pointed out this thing that I was trying to tell you, which is that the horizontal layers by the coast, they become vertical layers because the ocean's moving in and it's moving out, and this is happening all the time. Um, too many tangents. I forgot the purpose of all this. What we want, oh, we're not even showing what we're looking at. Okay. What we want is bum 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 bum. Okay, none of that matters. Sorry, I'm still not showing the right page. Okay, what were we talking about? We were trying to hope to shop this link around to some scientismists. They have a method. They can't wait to tell you about their method. Super cool. It is cool if it's done properly. It's very hard to do it properly. And believing you have it like you have an idol or something is not the same as being scientific. And so we're calling them scientismists. But science is extremely valuable. It's precious, it's difficult, it's fragile, and it can't get in bed with anything else or else it gets steamrolled. So, what we need to do is shop this video over to somebody who wants to argue about climate change or flat earth or anything, not because we're going to argue flat earth is true or something like that, but because we're going to try to liberate our minds. Wouldn't that be fun? The leap, Neo. We want to make sure that we're not being cultists, even if we're saluting the right God and saying the earth is round. But do we know why it's round? Can we make an argument that's round? Can we demonstrate to somebody that's round? Or do we just stick to that camp? I salute the flag that says round. Well, some people can argue that it's round. Some people have reasons why it's round, but it's always valuable to argue from first principles. And that's why we're grateful to have some people who might tell us that it isn't round. Noticing that someone else is in a cult doesn't mean you're not in one also. It's the easiest thing in the world for cultish people to notice that other people who oppose them are also in a cult. But we're here to actually free our minds in the simulation university. So that's what we're going to talk about, but I'm not sure how we're going to annoy the right people to get them in here. You can click on the link to join the live stream and come on camera here. Tell me why I'm a big doo-doo head. Oh, here's the thing that'll upset them the most. I'm a big doo-doo head. So here we go. The scientismist age is rapidly coming to an end. There's not a damn thing you can do about it. Nobody even has to oppose it. It's a natural part of the cycle. The Platonic inclination in philosophy is on the rise, like a wheel. I wish I could draw an image here. Like a wheel, like a big wagon wheel, half painted, half painted blue and half painted red. The downgoing of the one is what holds the reason for the upcoming of the other, which the upcoming of the other has within it the seeds of its eventual decline. And this conversation continues. And you just happen to be in the era where people will say, yeah, I've noticed too much the collapsing scenery about or surrounding all of this scientismism. And it's not the only game in town. That doesn't mean it isn't what it is. It's super valuable. Um, but we've lost all sight. We think of it as the ultimate truth. Let's see, is this a comment here? Oh no, it's about a better conversation. Okay. That's why they have whatever. It's a good conversation. Okay, so I don't know if we're going to tick anybody off, but if anybody's got suggestions about how we could tick somebody off and just have a good conversation, I really will just have a good conversation. We'll give lots of time to talk to people who have all sorts of reasons why I'm a bad, no person who shouldn't be saying anything against scientism, or even using that word, which I'm using on purpose to annoy them. But we'd have to get that conversation going. Maybe what we should do is search on X. Hey, Akira. Okay, let's search. That's not search. Post. Okay, let's do a search here and see if anybody's talking about this, and we can just link this here, spread the link to anybody, repost it, whatever. Look, it's proof of climate change. It's a redundancy, isn't it? Climate change. I mean, it's like, who could argue that the climate doesn't change? That'd be ridiculous. Um, the trend The trend is towards, for most of Earth's history, Earth was far too warm to support ice at the poles or on the mountaintops year long, where if you have ice year long, then you can have new ice and snow that falls on top of the old, and then you can get glaciers and ice caps and things like that. For most of Earth's history, we've been far too warm for that. For most of Earth's history that has had life on it, we've been far too warm for that. And for most of Earth's history that had life on it where it was far too warm for that, we had much more life. We were doing well. I mean, I don't know what's wrong. Like the Earth is being threatened by not freezing to death anymore. By the way, we're in one of 6 brief periods where we dipped down cold enough to have year-long ice. And we started coming out of this one before human beings evolved on the planet. Geological time is a lot older than anybody knows. Like geological space and time are just hard to wrap your head around. We mentioned James Hutton earlier, actually. That was James Hutton's big contribution to science. In the 1700s, when he and Adam Smith and poets and other thinkers would get together at the pub to just share what they've been discovering and writing and thinking about, James Hutton would spend his time in between those blessed interludes, good conversation at the pub, kayaking around Great Britain and looking at outcrops like the ones we were looking at a moment ago and measuring them really carefully and trying to discover what's true about the earth by just staring at rocks longer than you can imagine anybody staring at rocks. Science is powerful and it's beautiful. And when people do it right, it's really impactful. It's astonishing. And you can, even if you go to England now and you go and study those same outcrops, you don't have to measure them. You can just cite his papers. He did it right. It's accepted. You can just cite his paper about how many millimeters this layer is under this layer here that has slightly different mud component to it and slightly fewer different types of fossils or whatever. He did a great job. In any event, he's out there doing that and he's trying to make sense of the earth. And what he discovered, there's a really good book on this, actually. We could pull that up too. abebooks.com. Why don't we just keep sharing fun things while we're waiting to find a way to tick people off? I think it's called The Man Who Discovered Time. It's about James Hutton. James Hutton. Oh, that might not be the title. Doesn't seem to exist here. Keywords. How about we put it in title? Because I believe. No, it doesn't seem to be doing too well. All right. That might not be in the title. Okay. Does this book not exist? Let's see. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, everybody. We're looking at The Man Who Found Time. Okay. Of course, The Man Who Found Time. We'll go here. And we'll go here. And we'll go here. You can't see any of that because I'm there. Okay. Title. Yeah, it's a great book. The Man Who Found Time. James Hutton, The Discovery. You can get it for $7 off of Abe Books. You can get it for $4 used in good condition off of Abe Books. If you like hardcover books, it's still only $7. Anyway, this book is The Man Who Found Time. It's all about the fact that what he discovered was not the age of the earth. He didn't have a number for it. What he discovered was that if you knew the age of the earth, if you had the number for it, it wouldn't mean anything to you. It's too, like, saying it's 4.6 billion years old. You could say it's 4.8 billion, say it's 2 billion. Like, that number doesn't mean anything to you. You can't actually wrap your head around it. It's so old that if you knew how old it was, it wouldn't be comprehensible to you. Now, that doesn't mean we can't get a number. It's 4.6. That's fine, whatever. He didn't say you'll never have a number for it. He said the number doesn't actually mean anything to you. It's just a number. You know how to use it mathematically. It means that to you. But you know what 3 is, what 4 is, but you don't know what 4.6 billion is. You don't really. Like, you think you do because you can use it and manipulate it mathematically. But he was correct, of course, psychologically, that what he discovered was if you knew the age of the earth, it would be too old for you to wrap your head around. That's the idea. Anyway, how do we get into good old James Hutton? Probably just talking about the antiquity of the earth and how difficult geological time is for people to wrap their heads around. And we were talking about, I gave this lecture at a university once. This professor, a friend of mine, gave me use of his class, actually, because he wanted this debate to happen. He said, all right, why don't you come in and teach this class? And a bunch of other classes came. And the lecture was 7 reasons why you don't need to worry about climate change or something like that. And I was talking, it's so funny when you confront a cult. If you go to church and you tell them that their idea of God is wrong, do they act like, oh, that's very interesting? Some of them do. Some of them say, oh, let's have a debate or whatever. But typically they get quite upset. You're poking them in the axioms, as Jordan Peterson once said in his Genesis lectures. People don't like it. Well, I had pointed out to them that for most of Earth's history, Earth was far too warm to have ice caps, and that it had a lot of life, and it was teeming and thriving, and there was nothing to worry about as far as that goes. And all of those points I was making. And one of the students who was a geology student in at least junior year, maybe senior, was like, where are you getting this idea from? And I'm like, from any 101 geology textbook that you were supposed to be reading for the last 3 years? And she goes, oh, yeah, from a geology textbook. Like, your brain can't think. If you believe a religious idea and somebody says, you're here to study geology, it's in the textbook. So let's pull it up. This is like something that you might find in a 101 textbook on Earth history. I don't know why I keep getting rid of this, but let's pull it up in real time. It's pretty simple. Um, do, 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 do. Hey, there you go. That's pretty nice. Boy, we're freezing to death, aren't we? So much life up here. Let's get a bigger one. This one. I like this one. Oh, I'm not sharing. I need to share the screen. Sorry, everybody. We're out here Yahooing or Googling. It should be Google, but anyway, look at how much life there was when we were nice and warm. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times that we dipped down below, like I had said before. Let's look at this one. I like this one. This one's nice. You can get this from a 101 Geology History of Earth textbook. Cool. So, Earth's way cold. Oh my gosh, it's so cold. Oh, it's cold. It's coming up. It's coming up. Lots of Cambrian explosion. Lots of life. Oh my gosh, we got lots of energy and carbon. Holy cow, surficial life on Earth loves that stuff. La di da di da. Oh, mass extinction and horrible and bad things happening. I don't remember the full history of each of these exactly, but oh, horrible. And now there's a lot less life and there's a lot less carbon and there's a lot less heat and it's so cold. Things are freezing. Hey, we recovered and we came back. Lots of life, lots of life, lots of everything going really well. Everything's going well. We're having a lot of trouble. So we've had these 6 times. Now, this one, we're in an ice house in the quaternary. This has to be a logarithmic scale. Millions of years before present. This has to be logarithmic. There's no way. There's no way this is as wide here. Is it? I don't remember. It's been so long. It's been over a decade since I've had to think about this stuff. Is that really this is no, of course not. The difference between 510 and 570, and then 570 all the way over here to 4,000. All right, yeah. This is not. This would be stretched out a really long distance, and a lot of the reds would be a lot longer and things like that. This little blue over here would be very, very small. This is like the last few milliseconds of Earth's history. But so that screws it up. Can we get a real one? Can we get one that's stretched out that's not like ridiculous to look at? Probably not. But wouldn't that be nice? Now, let's look at this one for a quick second and see what this shows us. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see, maybe we can make it bigger by doing this. Okay, dun, 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 dun. Okay, this is definitely a logarithmic scale, right? So thousands of years before present. This is millions of years before present. So think of this green bit here as way stretched out by like 10 or 100 times or something like that compared to this area here. Okay, so we dip down, we're a bit too cold. We dip down here, we're a bit too cold. We keep coming up, coming up, coming up. But these are like nothing in time compared to like all of this. This is much longer. All right, so it's pretty difficult to see because you just can't stretch it out enough. This is like the Cambrian, the Triassic. This is like a lot of eras. This would be way stretched out, like thousands and thousands of times. Lots of time here where we're nice and warm. Oh, we dipped down. Oh, we came up. Oh, we dipped down. This is just not being stretched out enough for us to see it, but it's a little bit better. All right, so here we are over here. I don't know. Can you see that? I think you can see it. I'd have to pull this over here to know if you can even see. Yeah, you can see that. So I'll put it over here now. Okay, so we're in this tiny little millisecond of now, and humans showed up. Oh man, humans showed up around here. Is that right? 200,000 years ago? I'm reading the chart correctly, yeah? Okay, so humans start showing up around here? Possibly? Am I reading this wrong? I just got to make sure because the scale's changing. No, this says thousands of years before present, and then that's millions of years before present. So that split happens right here. So I think this is 200,000 years. Okay. So humans are showing up and we're living in cold areas and sometimes it's getting a bit warmer, whatever. So we're right here. Now, when this gets pointed out to people who are alarmists and activists and hopefully no one else is here. I should let you in. Okay, you're not, but click the link if you want to join. What they'll do is they'll zoom in. It's the craziest thing to do. They'll zoom in. Oh, that's as far in as I can zoom. They'll zoom in so much here that you're seeing tiny little pixels, and they're saying, look, the difference between this pixel and this pixel from the last 10 years or 2 seconds, like that we measured it 8 times today, is steeper than anything we've ever seen in the entire history of everything. It's like, whoa, that's alarming. Isn't that worrying? Except if you were a serious scientist, you would never say something like that. Because the way we get these temperatures back here is not by measuring the temperature of the earth every day. You know what I mean? It's from one data point and then maybe another data point and then sort of drawing a smooth curve through it. If you could zoom in, because remember, this is stretched out over like this is 100 times that, right? Isn't it? Yeah, basically, right? Yeah, it is. So like this green bit, oh, I'm pointing at it with my hand. That's not helpful. How about I use the mouse? This green bit here is from, 7 million years ago to 90 million years ago. But this black bit here is from 1 million years ago to 7 million years ago. So that's just 7 million years, and this is close to 100 million years, right? So this is 100 times or 10 times, maybe closer to 17 times longer than this right here. So if you made 17 of those green squares and then you stretched that all out over that, and then you just had one of the blacks after it, that would make, pointing at the screen, that would make this area to scale. Okay. Now you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in somewhere there. All you're seeing is a smooth curve that's being drawn between like a point over here and a point over here and a point over here. And, we got a couple of data points and we're kind of guessing and we're saying, well, this kind of life was existing there, but then it went off here and maybe it got too cold for them. And, there's this paleo climatology subject. And so you're looking at isotopes and you're looking at different things and trying to say like, okay, how warm was it? But it's not like you have a high resolution picture. So literally I said this because one of the professors who attended that lecture I gave made this objection. I didn't know how to answer it. He's like, well, but the rate, we've never seen such a sharp rate as we see right now with these tiny little pixels right here, which by the way, is nothing compared to like, you got to multiply this by 10 to get this. You got to multiply this by 10 to get this. You got to multiply this by 10 to get this. I mean, most of Earth's history is huge amounts of this data where we're not actually taking all that tiny data for every year. But right here, we're going like, okay, for the last 1,000 years, we've been measuring things and oh, it looks so high resolution. So he's like, well, the rate is higher now than it's ever been before. And I'm just like, whoa. And I thought about it for a second. And right after the lecture was done, that was the only question I didn't have an answer to. I was like, wow, that's it. Okay. Never thought of that. And I was like, "Oh, duh, it's obvious." And I walked over and knocked on his door. I said, is it possible that it's steeper now than it's ever been before because the means and the methods by which we measure the temperature of the Earth today in real time are higher resolution than the few points we have spanning hundreds of millions of years that we drew a smooth curve through?" And he went like this. He went, "Huh. Yeah. Yeah, that probably is the explanation." Like, it's you just have to have your brain on, and you can see through the nonsense of this. So, anyway, what were we looking at over here? Was there another point to make? Okay, so humans, this is what, 3 million years ago. So humans started evolving on the planet somewhere around here. And, hey, we can make it even bigger right there. Um, we overestimate. Now, here's something interesting. Let's put the science where I'm not using like a bunch of data to say, okay, here's proving climate change isn't real. I believe that there's a thermological connection between carbon atoms and molecules in the atmosphere. Like, I understand the greenhouse effect. This chart shows it pretty clearly. What I'm quarreling with is the mythopoetic story that's been attached to it. This was another thing I said in the lecture, which was also an interesting thing to see a response from. the students. I said, you're a member of a species. Now, here's how you do science properly. One of the principles of science, this is how hard science is to do and how difficult it is and how rigorous we have to be in adhering to these rules that make us, like I said before, drag us kicking and screaming against our will towards some sort of objectivity. One of the principles of truly doing science properly is to weigh evidence against interest and evidence against prejudice and evidence against passion. What does that mean? It means take a scale, right? You put weights here, you put weights there, you've got a scale, right? Take a scale, and if the proposition is true, that means this side goes down, right? So all the evidence for the proposition here, boom, oh, I say it's true. Okay, all the evidence against it over here, maybe we're not sure. Yeah, the evidence for it is greater, so whatever. That's the idea. Then the idea of weighing evidence against passion, interest, and prejudice is to say, if I want this to be true, I'm going to put extra weight over here because I'm the sort of creature that's likely to say that there's more evidence over here than there really is because I'm inclined to believe it. So I have to put more weight over here and then find more evidence for my theory. So while we're mocking the mythopoetic, religious, more than quasi-religious, it's architecture of the narrative surrounding things that these facts here just don't point to that narrative. While we're criticizing it, let's point out, as I did in that lecture, that you, if you're a scientist, you are a member of a primate species, almost every member of which, for the history of recorded time, has believed one or another version of the following story. Our sins are smoking up to heaven, and the gods are upset with us. An apocalypse is nigh. And if we don't listen to the prophets and repent rapidly enough, we're all going to be destroyed. Now, when I made this point in front of the professors and students at that lecture, one of the students said, yeah, but all those other stories are dumb. So she maybe was a Dawkinite, a religious person. Like, yeah, those other ones are dumb. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, except for the one you believe, right? I'm not sure if that sunk in, but this is what I'm talking about when we say if we want to do science, let's do it properly. If we want to value science, let's value it properly. But we have to, if we're going to do that, look at ourselves and say, are we being cultish? Because guess what? The history of our species is the answer is almost always yes. Here's something I can tell you from the history of science. You can just predict this. I don't know what they're going to discover tomorrow, but I can tell you what direction it's going to push us. It's going to push us in a Copernican direction. It's going to take us from our assumptions that we're the center of the story, where human beings doing things is what it's all about. And it's going to push us more to the periphery. It has to. Now, I can explain why it has to, and I can also explain why science is not the ultimate truth and that there's another version of the story which says the opposite, which actually considers subjects. We're not going to get into any of that now. If you want to say you value science, that's the only direction science can go. Whatever you're discovering tomorrow. This is why I wonder if I should bring this up because he's such a problematic person. I'm gonna just for now, I'll save my defense of this person another day. Just for now, I'm gonna leave him anonymous. I'm gonna say this is why there's a very interesting thinker out there who made a bunch of predictions about what was true about the history of the world or science or whatever it was. And then decades later, evidence came in that he was correct. And I laughed when I first heard what he was saying because I knew that would happen. What he was doing, whether he knew it or not, was very cleverly noticing picking up on the anti-Copernican instincts that have tainted our story of something that is relevant to science and just negated them and thought, well, what would happen if the story was more like that? And then, of course, you start to discover more and more which points in that direction, which was so funny because that's inevitably what science is going to do because it's trying to be objective. And so it's pushing the subjects further and further away from the center as it figures out how to tell a story without consideration of, regard to, or even acknowledgement of. I mean, what can science do to talk about consciousness or qualia or any of those things? It's just pushing that further away to tell a very powerful story that'll allow you to fly to the moon and make an iPad and do things much more important than just technology. It will allow you to discover sophisticated structures of the mind to make sense of huge amounts of crazy data, just to understand the world for its own sake. It's beautiful. Science is beautiful, but it's always going in that direction necessarily by the nature of what it is. And so I can tell you for sure that the more you study climate, the more you're going to discover there are factors that have nothing to do with people. And that, guess what? We did what we always do, which is we banged our heads against something we couldn't understand until we saw one connection between one molecule and one thing and said, Eureka, now I finally have something to grab onto. That explains everything. And we also brought along our anti Copernican instincts that we were really important to begin with. But hey, you could actually spend some time looking at this and understanding that this is less than a billionth of a billionth the length of this whole freaking thing. And, the whole of like the highest human beings traveled in the atmosphere. I mean, I guess we've gone to the moon, but like the highest molecule of gas in the atmosphere down to the lowest point that you can travel in the ocean, and you could add what distance we've drilled to that if you want. It means nothing. That entire thickness is less than the thickness of the skin of an apple if the earth were the size of an apple. I mean, you're just a few primates hopping around on this thing, and you have no idea how small you are, and you have no idea how old it is. And if you were given the number for it, it wouldn't even mean anything to you. That's what geologists, true geologists, know. All right. So, does the greenhouse effect work? Yeah, 100%. I'm not going to deny any real science. I wouldn't be inclined to want to. But is this mythopoetic story that has, nothing to do with it's not like you looked in a microscope and discovered that you're bad for existing and what you're doing is changing a perfect Eden. The the who is the guy who wrote this book? This is a book worth talking about for a quick second. Um just to show a few more religious things that are going on here. How about we go to Abe Books again? And I'll switch to this screen so you can see. And why don't we find the author of this is the grandfather of young earth science, biblical literal, um, Henry Morris. Henry Morris, the godfather of the young earth creationist types. In this book, he has an interesting theological assumption that is not very scientific, that's also shared by all the climate change people. That's why I'm bringing him up. This is, by the way, a worthwhile thing to study. It's very interesting. If you want to know the history of ideas and the relationship between conversations and vocabularies had between different instincts, this is a great book to read. But in this, the point of this book, by the way, is that Genesis in the Bible, the first book of the Bible, is basically a scientific textbook, and everything it says is proven by science. you might you might find that difficult to swallow. I'm not saying read this book because he's got the real science. Please notice that I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that's a heck of a thing to be able to accomplish intellectually, even if it's obviously wrong in lots of ways. It doesn't matter. The point is, we're here to talk about ways of thinking and notice that if we're in a cult as well. One of the assumptions he has here is that God made everything perfect. So, by definition, anything humans do to change what's already there is moving creation further and further away from the perfection of God's initial creation. The assumption that's not being noticed by a lot of climate scientists is that they're quite religious. And one of their assumptions is that if humans have the ability to change anything, it must be changing it from the perfect Eden that it was in 1650. Why was that a perfect Eden right there? But right there, a pixel that you can't even see as different is somehow necessarily moving away from the ideal, when actually this is 10 times longer than this is, and this is 100 times longer, and this is 1,000 times longer, and this is 10,000 times longer. This whole history of yellow, green, black, and this blue, black, whatever here, this whole history here is hugely long. And the idea that you would notice a connection between a molecule and a thermal property, that's correct, by the way. I mean, it was so weird to me when I was trying to study because I wanted to know if climate change was real. I was literally happy to conclude that it was and happy to learn the science so that I could bash people over the head and show them how it's true. That's why I started studying it. And what I discovered were two things. One, everybody tells me all the experts agree, but they can't tell me what they agree on. And when I ask them for some citation that shows they all agree, and I look into it, it's never anything like what they're talking about. And it doesn't even show that they all agree. And why would they? It's not science if everyone's agreeing. And two, I was told a Sesame Street experiment. Put silicon, like saran wrap, I mean, put saran wrap over a cup and leave it in the sun and it heats up because the radiant energy makes it in, but then the thermal kinetic energy of the molecules can't make it out. And it's like, yeah, I follow that. I I I'm more than 2 years old. I agree. But what you get in the public discussion is people who act like you're denying that if you deny that the nonlinear, chaotic, multiple feedback loop systems of many, many different things, and you can't predict it. And the math, by the way, the math to describe nonlinear, chaotic systems has not yet been invented by our species. So this science does not have a math. And you're telling me a story that sounds just like the types of stories members of the species that we're in tend to always believe. Study harder, do more science, really prove it. You've got a long way to go. And what's insufferable are the people who come out and say, "No, it's been established. We don't even question it anymore. Why won't you get on board?" And it tells you how you need to vote. Okay. Um, cultish, conservative, religious people who are very cultish can see through the retarded scientismist cult of power wedded with type of science where we promote and give jobs to the people who say you need to keep voting for me to have more power. It's just stupid. Okay. It's very easy for you don't have to be a liberated mind to notice a cult. And if you're in a cult, you have a hard time noticing that you're in it. But I'm trying to say things that will tick off and piss off anybody who wants to come in here. And by the way, I would love for someone to come in here and show me how much I don't know and how true it all is, because I'd love to change my mind. I absolutely have changed my mind on things in the past and love to do so. Big things. I would absolutely love somebody who come in here and be like, "Look, dude, you're just talking about a bunch of nonsense. Here's how you can know it's true. It's all simple. It's just this one molecule. Yes, that molecule used to be here till it got buried rapidly by a lot of catastrophic, cataclysmic events where the earth swallowed up hundreds of tons of life in a we call it an anaerobic environment, a non-oxygenated environment where life couldn't continue to break it down. And it just sat there becoming a pool of oil until we liberated it back into the atmosphere like it used to have it back when things were warm and had tons of life and huge, giant, thriving ecosystems that we just couldn't even imagine having today. So, yeah, moving from this pixel to the same pixel because it's too zoomed in is some sort of catastrophe. If you want to prove that to me, I'd love it. But if you want to go around being angry that nobody agrees that you are the high priest of the important cult that has it right, you sound like every other stupid cult, and common sense people are going to keep seeing through it. And even cultish people on other sides are going to see through it. And because it's the thing you're supposed to say you believe in intellectual circles, it actually takes smarter people to see through it because they have to actually do some of their own thinking to some degree. So you're in the dumbest cult. You leftists, you're in one of the stupid you're not scientific, you're religious, and you're in one of the stupidest cults that's ever existed on earth. Even people in cults that you point to and mock are much smarter than you are. And it's beyond insufferable, your attitude. Your attitude of your arrogance is beyond insufferable at this point. So, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to say things that will tick people off, but I'm not sure it's working well enough for somebody to click a link. So if you're watching this on X, share it with somebody who might be upset. And also look in the comments or the repost or whatever and click on the link that would put your camera here. Oh, if you are doing that and you're on your phone, you actually have to scroll more than you think and hit one more button to say join. It's like kind of hidden there for some reason. But if you join, you'll appear here and then I can add you. You can keep your camera off if you want. You can make up a pseudonym if you want. But you're welcome to talk. And if you join, you can even type comments here that I think we can maybe even show on the stream. So, not talking a lot about science. I'm talking about the philosophy and history of science, and I'm looking for fun excuses to share some cool things about science because science is awesome. And it's cool to know how much you can know if you really think hard and carefully study and bash your head against the almost infinite chaos of reality to see connections and make contact with things that can make models and formulas that can predict. It's fantastic. Fantastic. The climate people are not doing that, especially the political climate people are absolutely not doing that. And they haven't for a long time, and it shows, and everybody can see through it at this point. So, but it gets to the point where you can talk to people who are about to get their geology degrees from institutions of higher learning, they call themselves, who literally just mock and roll their eyes when you say, open up the 101 textbook you were supposed to have read but never read. It's in there. The claim I'm making is just accepted by everybody. If you want to say there's a consensus about your ridiculous narrative that twists into some sort of an emergency, the thing that the most alarmed scientists would never say at all, but whenever you ask them, they can't say lower my budget. So they have to say, yes, what I'm doing could be very important. And then you take that phrase to say, see, it's the most alarmed thing I twisted. And they go, well, that's not what I meant, but whatever. If you want to be in that cult, you can get a degree at a university. It doesn't even, I want to vomit. It doesn't deserve the name university. The real university is not in those walls anymore. But you can get a worthless piece of paper saying you're an important authority on the subject and then also not have read a 101 textbook on the subject and literally scoff and roll your eyes when someone suggests you do so. Because all of these ideas were news to them. They'd never heard of it. So I'm doing my best to irritate and annoy and trigger, and I could probably do a better job. There's certain things that I said scientism, they don't like that. The age is coming to an end, and there's nothing you or I could do about it. There's nothing. It'll rise again. There's nothing you can do about it. The Aristotelian way of thinking is on the decline. It will return. It's a conversation between the two, but the Platonic is on the rise. Bonjour, William James, Henry Reed, uh, Jordan Peterson, Kierkegaard, Jung, Nietzsche, these things that don't make sense to the people who want nice, simple, externalized, formulaic, cartoonified objects that they can put formulas on. Look, this shows I understand things. That's great. You should keep doing it and you should respond. But there's another that's on the rise. And there's nothing you can do about it because you're way past the point of diminishing returns. Everybody can see the collapsing scenery. I'm not saying you throw out science. Science is valuable and really important, and we want to keep it. And I was talking some science today. It's really worth doing, but it's not the ultimate truth. And it's not the only way to think. And it's only half the story in some ways. And this conversation will continue. So, since we haven't been able to bait anybody in here, there's lots more to talk about. And before you know it, if you keep hanging out and having some simultaneous sips, before you know it, you'll be flying through the matrix. And that's not an exaggeration. Somebody sipped with me. I could feel the simultaneity in that one. We didn't even preface it. Hoo-hoo. Whoever you are, thank you. That was a good one. Okay. Is there anything else to talk about? I don't see how we're going to shop this around to annoy people. Oh, you know what we could have done is what I said before. We could type in climate change into X and just start shopping the link around to see. Yeah, people are going to have to watch the recorded. I don't want to say all this stuff again. I don't want to just go into more and more rants about other things. There's something else. I mean, there's more we could talk about. How about this? We'll leave the video out there and see if anybody gets upset, and maybe they'll want to come in and tell me what a bad, naughty boy I am for thinking the things I'm thinking, and we'll have a good discussion later. Um, boom, boom, boom. As we add more people to the secret group of elite sippers, we will have people who can shop this around and trigger whoever needs to be triggered so they can come in, because these are smart people. These are smart people. We're not mocking them. We're just trying to liberate minds on all sides from our NPC nature, which we will do because that's our destiny and our joy. Now, what do I have to do with technology to make things work? How about I click on that? How about I click on this? How about I leave that? And then you can get all the info you need to thoroughly destroy me later in this recording. Boom. We'll give that to a good guy who's an honest thinker and talker and wants to have a conversation. And we'll get to show the world what it means to appreciate a person who differs from you, to want to be challenged by them, to not want to be. Oh my God, what is less comfortable than being surrounded by a bunch of people who say, "Amen, brother," all the time? Like, who wants that? What you need, so that you're not a slave to your own ideas, are challenges that you might not come up with. So you need to talk to honest people, people whose intellectual integrity and capacity and virtues you value and trust and admire, who sharpen you, who challenge you. You could be on this side of the mountain, I could be on this side. We can pull against each other, but we might just get elevation by doing that. And we might sophisticate our own perspectives by doing that. And we might pull on the other side. We might both come a little bit towards the middle, but really what we're doing is moving up towards the truth. And that's what's valuable. So if you don't like talking to people who tell you you're wrong, you're definitely in the lower layers of enlightenment, which is fine. Good for you. That's great. Be an awesome person. And we have no contempt for you. But if you would like to liberate your mind from that, so that you're not just pointing out how everybody else is a cult, but you're actually liberating yourself from cultish thinking, one of the major steps you're going to need is to not just argue with people, pointing out that they're wrong and how you're always right and pretending to own the truth, but appreciating the challenges from other people, saying, I haven't heard it that way before. I wonder how I would respond to that. I'm looking forward to the responses that will be coming. I knew this gentleman was busy today. I don't know what day it is where he is on Earth, but I think he's 3 hours ahead plus 12, something like that. So it's like 4 in the morning tomorrow. Not tomorrow. It's 4 in the afternoon tomorrow. It's midnight where I am, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, when he gets a chance, and he'll be able to see this, and then he can come in and tell us why we're naughty, naughty, bad, bad people for saying all the horrible, horrible things we said. You should be holding up the gods of science and the idols of science because they have the ultimate truth, and stop being a denier. Well, I'm not a denier of science, but I am a denier of scientism. And I'm a denier that science is easy to do. And I'm a denier of the idea that it's possible to do it at all if it's in bed with anything else. So those are my positions. But I love science. Don't bin it. Don't throw it out. I don't love it as the highest truth, but it's super valuable, and you should love doing it, and you should learn to do it properly. And when we do our classes on Francis Bacon and Galileo, by the way, most people who want to bash you over the head about how you don't know science well enough couldn't comprehend a paragraph of Galileo. It's hard. Okay. These are some serious thinkers who did the inventing of these ways of thinking, and they knew the limitations of these ways of thinking. They weren't a bunch of cultists like their followers are. This always happens. That's fine. We're going to make ourselves and them more sophisticated through honest, good conversation. So we'll see you then. Let's end this stream. And I don't know. We don't have to talk about the Aquinas stuff. We could come back on again. Probably not. Let's call it quits for tonight. Happy sipping.